I'm delighted to welcome all of you here today, and please feel free to log into the chat and let us know where you're dialing in from. Before we start the seminar, let me just introduce our Secretary General, Mr. Young Tae Kim, to open the webinar. Thank you. Young Tae.
Hello, everyone. Good to see you again. Some of you, I think we met already yesterday for the previous discussions on road safety. And I think we really had excellent discussions yesterday. And especially, I once again thank the Minister, Madam Meraf Makieli, Minister of Transport and Road Safety of Israel, who gave us an opening speech. And I think all the discussions were very rich, and we look forward today also to this webinar looking at road safety with a particular focus on crash testing and crash test dummies. The key points of the discussions of both yesterday and today will fit into our ministers' roundtable on road safety, which will be held as part of our annual summit in Leipzig in May. So we have dates, they are 18 to 20 in May in Leipzig. We are targeting an in-person meeting, and we will see. And also, we have a UK presidency coming up in May. And under UK presidency, we will also discuss a lot of interesting topics in the mobility sector, including road safety issues. And the theme of the summit will be the inclusive societies, transport for inclusive societies. But nevertheless, we will continue to discuss road safety and also climate changes and other interesting topics in Leipzig. So I hope that today's meeting will be also very useful and informative to all the participants in our webinar. And I hope that we will enjoy our discussions and will be filled with insights and inspirations when we finish our meeting today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Young Tae. I'd like to, first of all, welcome you all here today, and to also thank those of you who've already written in the chat. So yes, I know, thank you to Sharia who asked the question of whether we could watch the sessions that happened yesterday online. Yes, they're on our YouTube channel, and we'll put those links into the chat. And as well, if any of your colleagues are missing today's seminar, that will also be on YouTube as well after the fact. My name is Sharon Masterson, and I am the manager of the Corporate Partnership Board at the International Transport Forum. The Corporate Partnership Board is our platform for engaging the private sector in the policy work that we do. So yesterday on International Women's Day, we had our first webinar looking at the topic of road safety and the SDGs, in particular looking at road safety and gender. As our Secretary General mentioned, we had the Minister of Transport of Israel and representatives from Alliance Partners, the UN Road Safety Fund, Tier Mobility, and Youth for Road Safety as speakers. Today, we're delighted to take a deeper dive into a topic that made the headlines again after the release of the book called Invisible Women by Caroline Criado Perez. That book gave us a lot of information about data. And so, for example, when a woman is involved in a car crash, she is 47% more likely to be seriously injured and 17% more likely to die than a man. So this session will bring together the experts and speakers to give an opinion on why this is the case, and also look to see what we can do to mitigate this. To moderate this session, I'm delighted to introduce my colleague, Veronique Seipel. Veronique is heading up a lot of our road safety work at the International Transport Forum, and I'll hand you over to Veronique. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much, Sharon, and welcome everyone. It's a pleasure for me to moderate this session this afternoon. As Sharon mentioned, I work at the ITF, mainly involved with road safety. In particular, we have a working group called IRTAD on international traffic safety data, which recently published its annual report 2021, looking in particularly at the impact of COVID-19 on mobility and road safety. And we will publish for the summit in Leipzig, a new report on the implementation of the SAFE system, which will be a great input for the debate on road safety at the summit. But today we are going to focus on the role and the of women in road safety. And we have an outstanding panel with us today. And I would like to introduce you our three panelists. And I'm pleased to welcome Astrid Linde, who is Professor of Traffic Safety and working currently at VTI, the Swedish National Road and Transport Research Institute. Welcome, Astrid. We have Caroline Roberts, who is a safety researcher at Arrival. Arrival is a new company working on the design and assembly of electric vehicles. And we have with us Radoslaw Ksapski, the program manager at the Global Road Safety Facility of the World Bank. So as you know, currently we have the Sustainable Development Goal 3.6, which aims at halving the number of road deaths from road traffic. And today we would like to see what this means for women. So as Sharon mentioned yesterday, we discussed this from a more general point of view. And today we would like to discuss the development of vehicle-related products that have traditionally been designed for male. So I'm talking about safety equipment in vehicles such as headrests, seatbelts, airbag, just to name a few. And this has serious implications for all of us who are not part of the average 75 kilos, 1.80 meters tall, and in particularly women. And I feel very much concerned as I am very short and small. So we are now going to start the panel, and I would like to start asking a question to Radek, who can perhaps give us a general overview of the issue of how the World Bank is working on this topic. So the Global Road Safety Facility estimates to have saved around 320,000 flights around the world. Could you please share with us some success stories and specifically explain how the needs of women have been taken into account in the formulation of road safety policies? Radek.
Yes, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to the event. I'm honored to be able to participate and contribute to this discussion, particularly because as the World Bank, we are putting gender equality among our top priorities. And obviously, it is also an important aspect of road safety. Now, for those who don't know Global Road Safety Facility, just a few words about us. We are a multi-donor funded and hosted by the World Bank fund and technical team of professionals supporting road safety initiatives and management capacity and overall capacity building and scaling up road investments, particularly in low and middle income countries, because that's the primary mandate for the World Bank. And through our over 74 million of funding, we have already been engaged in over 80 countries of the world, as I said, primarily low and middle income countries, providing different types of projects. And in relation to women's safety, let me underline a few aspects that we have tackled through our initiatives. First, we have done some reports already years back, around 2015, and the most prominent of them was about road safety through the gender lenses, making roads safer using a gender-targeted approach, which has drawn the attention of women aspects or female aspects of road safety and how to address challenges that women face in road safety. Now, the other block of activities that we have supported is related to crash and other road safety data. Regretfully, most of low and middle income countries do not collect data related to road safety up to the required quality that would allow them properly plan and target interventions. In particular, they have difficulties also with data related to gender aspects of road crashes victims, female victims, and women suffering in crashes. So we are paying a lot of attention to make sure that the developing countries, low and middle income countries, are improving their data collection and management systems, because if they don't know the scale, the nature of road safety problem, they are very unlikely to address it properly, even through some well-conceived programs and interventions. So together with our International Transport Forum colleagues, we have developed a tool that is aimed at analyzing country-level crash data systems in order to improve its quality and make sure that gender disaggregated data is available for advanced analysis and for planning and implementing well-targeted women user-focused interventions. We have also provided and continue providing a lot of support to road safety regional observatories. We are supporting African Road Safety Observatory. We are supporting Asia Pacific Road Safety Observatory. These are vehicles for international exchange of experience in good practices, including women road user focused interventions, but also creating a bit of a competitive pressure on countries involved in those regional observatories to deliver better road safety and stimulate each other to deliver better safety on their roads. Then, thanks to our collaboration with the International Vehicle Inspection Committee, which is specializing in technical inspections of vehicles as part of our work in vehicle safety pillar, we have developed a tool for assessing quality and suggesting improvements in the national vehicle inspection systems, because these are crucial tools in assuring proper standards in relation to road safety equipment of vehicles, but also emissions of vehicles. Actually, it's worth mentioning also that decarbonization of transport goes hand in hand with road safety. There are lots of synergies through quality of vehicles, for example, but also through managing proper speeds on the road network. As we know, speed is a crucial factor in severity of crashes, and anything we can do to manage speed will have double impact. On one hand, improve safety. On the other hand, improve emissions, because lower speeds means also lower emissions. Lastly, but this is also one of the big pillars of our activities, we are supporting our internal teams. We are a kind of resource internally for the bank teams developing loans and other activities supporting low and middle income countries in delivering our transport projects. And we have developed an internal policy that every road sector or urban transport sector project should address road safety up to the required internationally recognized standards. Has to include road safety prominently, improve it, not just for the infrastructure in relation to the infrastructure that we may be involved in constructing, but also beyond that, improving system of managing and planning and delivering safety in the country of our involvement. So we are now assuring that all of our World Bank activities, whenever we do them, and we are active in more than 160 countries of the globe, with on average 30 to 40 billion in lending annually. Out of this, about 15 to 20% is in the transport sector. This is our additional added value, that we can impact what the bank is contributing to in terms of infrastructure, but also overall management system. And given that gender equality is so high on our agenda, all these activities have to be taking into account, have to take into account women needs, women specific challenges faced on the roads, and assure that we keep improving them in the context of SDG 3.6. And we really contribute to halving deaths by 2030 on the roads.
Thank you so much, Radek, for your introductory remark. And maybe later on we can, in the Q&A session, discuss further the issue of data and how women are or not adequately represented in crash data. I would like to turn now to Astrid and to go to the topic of women in safety research and safety development. So what is your experience, Astrid, with safety policies being gender blind regarding women issues?
Yeah. First of all, I want to thank you for ITF for inviting me and arranging this very important topic on the discussion on this topic. And I do expect a presentation coming up now. Is that right? Or do you want me? Yes. Okay, thank you. So yeah, I'm an engineer, and I address this from an engineering perspective, and it's about how we assess safety. So we know that we have a lot of different tools when it comes to the development phase, and now it's I will focus here on the how women and men are represented when we assess safety, and that comes down to crash test dummies. Next, please. So the data that I will show you today is also found in this publication in Accident Analysis and Prevention, where me and a colleague looked at what, from a European perspective, what the law says and how we are represented as the population in the regulatory test that we apply in Europe, but is applied globally as well. Next, please. So here you see a summary of how we, the female part of the population and the male part of the population, is represented in the test where we use crash test dummies. And to your very left, you see the seatbelt test. In the middle, you see the frontal test, and to your right, you see the side impact tests. And in all these tests, we use the average male as the norm, or the only one that we use. It's a little bit different. I'll show you that later. But in none of the tests, we use a model representing the female part of the population, because simply it doesn't exist. Next, please. So I want to show you here what the formulations are in the actual regulation, because often I get the question, but you know, this cannot be true. This cannot be the case. So therefore, I will have 3 slides with the text. And so you can see here, this is the seatbelt test, that the requirement from the society is that you use a model of an average male. And then you have the picture of the mannequin for the seatbelt test. Next, please. For the frontal test, which are 2 different tests, we also, as a passenger, are required to use a model of an average male. In one of the tests, we have the possibility to put a small female as a passenger, but never as the driver. Next, please. Next slide, please. Here we are. So this is then our side impact test. And also here you see, oh, that was a bit too quick. Sorry, we go back? Okay, on that slide, here we are. On this slide, you also see the text in the regulatory test. It's the R95 and 135 this time, showing for side impact. We have used 2 different dummies representing the population, and both of those, the requirement is that they are average males. Next, please. So, in summary, what models of the population do we have access to? We have the average male, we have a small female and a large male to be used to cover the range in particular height and weight of the population. But nowhere yet is the female part of the population represented equally to the male. So this is where we are, quite hands-on. Yesterday we talked about what data is it and where are we. This is where we are. So, but where can we be, and what data do we have available? We many of us are working now in also addressing this in virtual testing, and there we have some progress. Next, please. Next slide, please. No, okay, yeah. So here you see an average male and an average male and an average female side by side, developed in as human body models. Here, these are not crash test dummies. It's models of the human with the skeleton and everything. So we have started this progress, but of course we have a long way to go because we have gathered data for a long time when it comes to the male, and now we need to do the same for the females to have an equal pair of representing the whole population when we do safety assessment. So with that, that was what I have intended to show you, and the question is that I also sometimes get is why is this so? And which was also highlighted yesterday when we met. This is the lack of the female being represented is the result of the leadership and political will and our will. So this is nothing that has to be like this. It can change and it should change. Thank you.
Just a direct question, if I may, Astrid, on your presentation. What does it mean in practice that we don't have a female dummy when testing a seatbelt or an airbag? So it means that the seatbelt may damage, may hurt a woman rather than protecting her?
In particular, it means that we cannot identify the best innovations. And I have a background in, or I'm still working a lot with the whiplash injury. And there we know that some systems actually protect both part of the population better than others. But we will have to wait 10 years for the injury data to be gathered. And we cannot identify that as customers. So we have shortcutted the customers' possibility to actually choose the best performing seats with cars with best performing safety system, and we can only today find this in injury statistics, and then it's too late. Then the cars are already there. So this is really the driving force that we are shortcutting by not having the whole population equally represented.
Yes, that's striking. And what is the prospect in developing a dummy which represent fairly the woman body?
That is what we have shown in this activity that I showed with the human body models, and others are working at that. We do from different part of society. We know a lot about our differences, so we can implement those in our models. But they need to be required, because we cannot expect anybody to use a model that we don't require, and that we don't even you don't get any benefit if you show that this works equally well. So that's really the where we need to start.
Thank you very much, Astrid. I saw in the chat that there were many questions and discussions about dummies. You are welcome to also raise your questions on the Q&A section, and we may, at the end of this section, select a few questions for our panelists. I would like now to turn to Caroline and ask her to give us some examples based on her current work of challenges faced in gender equality in road safety. In particular, I think you are going to talk about differences in crash data collection in different countries. Caroline.
Yeah, so I want to echo my panelists' thanks for the invitation to speak today. I greatly appreciate it. So to give a little bit of context of my background, so I'm also an engineer like Astrid, and I work with both epidemiology or road traffic safety analyses and additionally injury biomechanics, including physical testing and crash test dummies and all of that stuff. But I would like to start. Sharon mentioned a statistic that females have 47% higher odds of sustaining severe to fatal injury in a crash compared to a male. And I want to be clear, that's a very good statistic, because what it does is it controls for height and weight. So that is the same size male and female. So there's a significantly higher risk for females in a same crash, basically, even if the female and male are the same age, height, and weight. So that study came out of I actually worked on that study. It came out of the lab where I got my PhD. And there is a follow-up study, which is exciting, that demonstrates that injury risk has not changed over the past few years. But additionally, what it has shown is that over time, male and female safety have both improved. And that's something I want to highlight and really hit home, because you asked a question about your seatbelt, if it's more damaging for females. Absolutely, to everyone in the room, please wear your seatbelts, please use your airbags, please use all the safety equipment, whether you're male or female. Because over time, we have demonstrated that while a lot of the crash testing and evaluations have been centered around the average male, all of us are humans, and by improving safety for the average male, we have improved safety for everyone. While not in exactly at an equal rate, we have improved safety for everyone. So please use all your safety features in your vehicles. Okay, after that little aside, so it's really important to talk about this because there is a discrepancy. And historically, a lot of the crash testing has been centered around the average male. However, one of the challenges is when we create a crash test dummy, it's really critical to make sure that we are using data that is accurate in evaluating and demonstrating and creating that tool. So historically, we've used crash test dummies. They're expensive to make, they're expensive to test. And so there's been a limitation on the number of crash test dummies that have been used. However, there's been a lot of developments in technology over time. For example, human body models. Astrid showed a couple on the last slide of her presentation that can be used to represent a greater diversity of body types. I want to highlight that a lot of people think that the solution to this problem is to create a 50th female dummy, an average female dummy. However, while right now we can create accurate body geometry, we can create the accurate size of a female crash test dummy or a female computer body model, the thing that we are really missing that would actually help with crash safety and evaluation is the fundamental data that is needed to evaluate those crash test dummies. So when you take a crash test dummy, you put it in a crash, there's sensor data that is output. And then we take that sensor data and we correlate it to an injury risk. That's how we determine if there was an injury or not for the crash test dummy. All of that data, the determination of injury risk, is determined by fundamental biomechanics data. So that includes cadaver tests, that includes volunteer tests, and really we're lacking that data. It takes a long time to collect that data, unfortunately, and analyze it. So the big takeaway I want everyone to have from this talk is that absolutely we should be striving for equality and safety, and absolutely we should be striving for evaluation with female tools. However, our female tools are only as female as the fundamental data that is collected to create them. So one of the things we're really lacking is research for fundamental data to ensure that crash test dummies and human body model computer models are accurate to actual female response. Because for me, I think it would actually be more detrimental if we create a female crash test dummy using and validate it with male data. We might not actually be solving the problem that's underlying, that's causing a difference between male and female injury risk.
Thank you very much, Caroline, for your insight. I heard that the State Secretary from the UK may be online. Is it the case, Sharon, or not yet?
Not yet. Perhaps in a moment.
Okay, so we may interrupt the discussion when the State Secretary comes, but in the meantime, we will continue our panel. And thank you so much, Caroline, with your remarks on the need to have data that accurately represent risk for women as well. As you know, we will have the...
If I may, Veronique, may I just wanted to echo what Caroline has said, that we are discussing about specific topic about the assuring that the female body parameters are well reflected in the dummies, in the mannequins used for crash testing, in order to improve safety of vehicles primarily. But it doesn't mean automatically that the existing passive and active systems that vehicle manufacturers are installing in our cars are not effective. It's not about changing them completely. It's about fine-tuning them. It's about making sure that they do not do any minor harm to female part of the vehicle users, whether drivers or occupants. So please, dear participants of this event, do not understand it as the need to completely revamp our passive and active vehicle safety systems. It's just fine-tuning them to avoid any female injuries that could be avoided.
Yes, Radek, this is indeed a very important point to say that the current passive safety development in vehicles have been a major breakthrough in road safety in the past years. And if we have saved so many lives in the past 2 or 3 decades, it's mainly because of all the great improvement inside vehicles. So absolutely, we should not forget it. And it's really an issue of just fine-tuning and making sure whether we can make it even better for women and decrease, in some cases, the severity of injuries. We talked a little bit about mainly cars, but I would like to ask Astrid or maybe other panelists about other types of vehicles, and including motorcycles and bicycles. And as we see in many of our cities, there are growing expansion of shared bicycles. And what I found, being a woman, it's sometimes they are a bit heavy and not necessarily designed for women. So do you have a view on this, any of the panelists, on whether today's motorcycles and bicycles could be improved for the use by women?
I can start with sharing the experience from Sweden, and in particular what you highlight here, Veronique, about vulnerable road users. It goes both for bicyclists and pedestrians in particular. When they are injured, not killed, but injured, which is the much larger numbers than the killed one. This is mainly in our findings in Sweden in single crashes, like bicyclists, for example, or pedestrians if you slip and fall. And that is not a police issue. So you will not have a police on place. They have more serious things to do. So therefore it doesn't show in the police data. You need to look at hospitalized data and also look at disabilities, because many of these, when it comes to cyclists, are, for example, are shoulder injuries, and they are not life-threatening in any way or form, but they can cause disabilities. So with lifelong pain and suffering for the persons, and all the consequences for the society. And then, of course, in addition, we have the testing, as you highlight, Veronique, about those outside the vehicles. And if we don't have an average female in the car, we definitely don't have her outside.
Thank you, Astrid. But my question was also about the design of motorcycles and bicycles for women. Sometimes these devices may be very heavy and not easily manageable by a woman. So is it an issue that you have been that you have met in your various work and projects?
So I'll say that that is more of like a ergonomics and design question. It's a very good one for sure, but it's not my background, and I think Astrid and I have a similar background. We're just interested in the crash, really, and making sure that the injuries don't happen.
Well, that's where we have our expertise, right? We can be very broadly interested when we have our expertise in that.
Yeah, let me enter this discussion and try to share some of my thoughts, although I don't feel specialized in this neither. But it's right that there is a problem, and vehicles actually can be more or less adapted to female use, and it concerns cars, it concerns bicycles, it concerns motorcycles. Now, in relation to all these, I'm just kind of dreaming about a scheme where manufacturers will follow the overall global trend of gender equality and start designing vehicles more for women than for a universal user. In other words, it's also for private sector to explore this kind of marketing strategy where there will be preparing models of their vehicles slightly modified to better fit the expectations, the needs of female part of the population. Lighter, maybe easier to steer, cozier in terms of design when we are talking about cars, more aesthetic, and so on and so forth. I'm also dreaming about some sort of, ranking list of specific models of vehicles, being passenger cars or other vehicles or bicycles in particular. Well, as a road safety professional, by the way, I'm not a particular fan of motorcycles because they are most dangerous of all the vehicles on the roads for their users and also for other users of roads, unfortunately. But I'm dreaming about some sort of ranking list of women-friendly vehicles and some sort of independent ranking institution equivalent of NCAP, for example, focusing on female aspects of design and convenience in using different types and models of vehicles. That could be a nice addition to the drive for more gender equality in using vehicles.
Thank you, Radek. There was a question in the chat to which Astrid, you partly answered, and it was about Euro NCAP and whether they were using female dummies. So you responded that as of today, Euro NCAP does not use female dummies.
Yeah, I tried to. Maybe I formulated myself too shortly. It doesn't exist. I'm really sure that Euro NCAP would very much love to use it if it existed. I don't. That is not like a resistance towards using it, but as globally we haven't made this model or these models. So it's as I showed you, because there is nobody. It's as a society we don't demand it. We don't demand that this part of the population is covered in the regulatory test, and then everything else follows from that. So I'm fully convinced that Euro NCAP would use all the tools that they can get hand on in order to assess safety. That's why they're going into virtual testing and so on. So the dedication is absolutely there, but the actual dummies are not available.
Thank you. As you know, there will be the ITF summit in May, and there will be a ministers' roundtable focusing on road safety as a kind of preparatory debate for the high-level meeting of head of states that will be at the end of June and beginning of July. So I would like to ask now the panelists whether there is one key messages, one request that you would like to make to policymakers on how to better integrate women into road safety policy. So if there was a magic request that you will be able to make, what would you like to ask to policymakers? Caroline, how?
Great. I think this is a fantastic question. So I would say there's a kind of two-part answer to this from the crash safety perspective. Obviously, equity in women in transportation, there's a lot of facets that go into this, but for crash safety purposes, I would say there's two things we really need to do for policymakers. And one is to set goals to have equal representation and evaluation by a certain time period. What that is a question mark. But I don't think you can have that goal without also having a goal for funding research for fundamental female data to understand injuries. That includes epidemiology work, that includes crash test dummy development work, and that includes fundamental injury data on cadaver and volunteer tests. So those two things, I think, equal representation and evaluation, and also research funding are really, really big concerns. And that kind of answers a question I had in the chat. So policy is the best way to get funding for this, for sure.
Thank you. I see that there are interesting questions on the Q&A. Maybe I would like the panelists to look at them while Radek, you may wish to answer the questions about what would you like to ask policymakers, who will be the ITF study?
Yeah, based on our policy dialogue and our involvement as a World Bank in low and middle income countries, there are obviously many, many angles you can look at the gender equality in road safety. But if I have to limit myself to perhaps not one, but just two of them, one of them would be definitely making sure that the data system, road safety data system, crash and other road safety related data that any country is collecting and then using for analysis, research and development of their action plans are gender specific and are accurate and are of high quality. That's point number one, because only with this data, gender-specific actions, gender-specific interventions could be feasible. If you have sufficiently detailed, sufficiently disaggregated, and of sufficient quality data. Plus, if these systems are improved, we will have better overall picture of the scale of the problems and nature of road safety problems in a particular country-specific environment, which is of paramount importance, because only then we can adapt activities and international donors can help address road safety challenge. The second big and often underestimated area where I would advocate for paying more attention to female needs is that there is benefit in having more women involved in transport services. We all know that women are much safer drivers and operators of vehicles for a number of reasons, but it's proven scientifically. So there is benefit, huge benefit to the society to activate women to more actively participate as labor force in these kinds of traditionally male professions like drivers or tram drivers or bus drivers or school bus drivers or taxi drivers. And we have plenty of splendid examples of taxi companies that employ only female drivers and drive mostly female passengers, sometimes in some countries for security reasons as well, but this is great. And I know that many cities, when they are operating public transport companies, are also trying to attract female drivers to be more present among their workforce. Again, this is to the benefit of women themselves, because that gives them chances, particularly in low and middle income countries context, give them chances for stable jobs, employment and revenue stream to the family. It activates female part of the population in terms of contributing to the overall wealth of the society. And it also brings safety benefits because, as I said, women are statistically much safer drivers, much more responsible drivers, and provide better quality of service, calmer drivers as well. Now, that also means that perhaps there should be considerations put into differentiating in the insurance schemes the premiums for male and female drivers, because there are statistics that could support reducing insurance premiums for women, given they are much better safety record behind the wheel. So if this is the case, and I know this may face some legal obstacles, but if we can manage to convince policymakers, this could add an incentive to professional service, transport service companies to employ more women, because the cost of insurance will be a bit lower to them. Plus, there is also a benefit to the operators or companies themselves, whether they are private or public, because when women are driving more, they are driving calmer, they are driving slower, they are consuming less fuel. So it has not only economic and safety benefit and social benefit, but it adds also decarbonization benefit to this whole equation. So I can see only pluses in this kind of policy, and I would very heavily recommend, very strongly recommend to consider these kinds of complex labor / insurance / marketing or promotion policies by public sector partners, but also private sector.
Thank you very much, Radek. This is indeed very useful insights on how we could better integrate women in the labor force. And I guess it will be also very important to integrate women into decision-making of commissions, committees who design roads, who design vehicles. There is also an interesting question in the chat, I guess, which is more for you as for the World Bank, saying that very often in low and middle income countries, women and children walk along highways where you have high-speed vehicles, and they are very much at risk because there is no adequate footpath. So this is really a plea to consider having better walking infrastructure along these highways.
Yes, this is very true, regretfully, and I didn't want to go on with additional policy recommendations, but since I have been questioned, I'm happy to add that indeed the World Bank is doing a lot of road infrastructure improvements or greenfield road construction, and we are paying a lot of attention to assure safety of not just vehicles, but all other particularly vulnerable users, and particularly in the rural environments where the road is crossing village, to make sure that there is a separation of vulnerable users traffic from vehicles traffic, heavier vehicles traffic, but also in urban environment when it is of utmost importance to make sure that the bus stops are constructed in such a way that it's not easy to suddenly jump onto the pavement ahead of the car. So infrastructure of bus stops, separation of traffic, bicycle lines, and enforcement of speed is of importance, because, and we are promoting particularly automatic enforcement, as it can cover larger sections of road network, because the slower vehicles move effectively and really, the less risk there is, particularly for vulnerable road users in the environments where there are public schools or hospitals or any other public places, and there are lots of women and kids in these areas. So yeah, infrastructure has a large role to play. We are introducing compulsory road safety audits of infrastructure projects at different stages of development to make sure that solutions that will be there for decades often, because roads are long-term investments, are up to the internationally recognized safety standard with the well-separated traffic of vulnerable users from vehicles.
Thank you, Radek. And I would like to come here to the bias of some data, because we just talk about women or children walking along infrastructure. And it is very likely, especially in low and middle income countries, that when a woman is hit by a vehicle and injured, that she will not be reported to the police. So this means that it's very likely that when we look especially at injury data, we may have biased data, because many of the women injured as pedestrians are not recorded. So the policymaker or his advisor who are analyzing the data may not be aware of how the problem really hit women and children directly. I don't know if any of you would like to develop on this issue.
I would say that I'd love to hear Astrid's opinion on this, but I also don't think she gave her policy recommendations. So I think Radek and I did, but I don't think Astrid did. So I would love to hear.
Thank you, Carolyn. I first with the policy recommendation, and you're very right. I think for here it is about an inclusive society, and to the leaders it is showing leadership to ensuring that we in everything that is written, everything that is communicated, in every way, it is an inclusive society. And so far, the regulatory test is the opposite. It's clearly exclusive. And that's a very, very strong message. I think, and here we can act in different ways, but we have, if we are sincere about an inclusive society, then this is fundamental. So that was my recommendation. But Veronique, I think we have a distinguished presenter now entering.
Yes. I am very pleased to inform you that Ms. Trady Harrison, the Parliament Under Secretary of State from the Department for Transport of the United Kingdom, has just joined us. So, Ms. Harrison, would you like to give us some remarks on the issue of women and road safety? We are very, very pleased that you join us, and we are very honored of your presence.
I certainly would. Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to the International Transport Forum and, of course, the Secretary General, Jung Tai Kim, for inviting me to say a few words today. And it's particularly important because yesterday was International Women's Day, which is an annual reminder of the daily challenges women still face in most walks of life. And sadly, transport is no exception. It was wonderful to hear previous speakers speak of how safe women are. As a fellow female motorist, I can only agree, but I do feel frustrated that in 2022, we still see reports such as women are 2.5 times more likely to report feeling unsafe on public transport since the Me Too movement. Or that in London, over 50% of women have been sexually harassed on public transport, which is why, as a relatively new transport minister and mother of 4 daughters, I've really taken this issue to heart. Not just to ensure that my daughters, but indeed all women can travel free from fear, but to try as best as I can to start shaking up the transport industry in the UK, encouraging greater diversity at senior levels so that better, more inclusive decisions could be made to design transport networks that really work for women. After all, it was a woman who introduced road speed limits, breathalyzer tests, and compulsory seatbelts in the UK. These are measures which have saved thousands of lives on our roads. Yet to this day, the UK transport industry remains dominated by men, and that is despite women averaging more trips on public transport and private hire vehicles. But also despite our travel habits often being different, with women who are still more likely to have childcare and caring commitments alongside work, often needing to make multi-purpose and and multi-stop trips as well. So, yeah, answering the question, what has all this got to do with road safety? Given that streets and roads make up 3/4 of public space in the UK, they have a direct impact on people's quality of life. And that's why making our roads safe should go beyond the vital work we're doing on reducing crashes and collisions. It must include measures that protect all road users, and particularly the women who ride buses, walk to work, hail taxis. And I'm delighted that we're taking action. We're revising the guidance local authorities use to design our streets, placing an additional emphasis on safety. We're also supporting
I'm not sure if it is my connection or Trudy's connection, which is weak.
I guess we've lost connection completely.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sharon, do you know whether Ms. Harrison will come back?
I'm not sure, Veronique. I can't see them reconnecting, so perhaps maybe if there's any more questions in the chat, we can just check for one of those, and if she comes back to us, we'll be able to finish with her closing remarks.
So in that case, maybe I will just have a last round among the panelists, and then we will close the session. So, oops. Astrid, what is your main takeaway from this meeting, and what would you like the key messages to be brought to Leipzig?
Yeah, the takeaway for me is that I'm really inspired that we talk about this at all, that we get it on the table, what we have, what we don't have, what we can do, what we cannot do, and that's the knowledge fundament that we need to share in order to move forward. So that is great, and I think it's really inspiring. And yeah, I touched upon this before the minister came. I think it's crucial that in everything that the society signals, it is inclusive. And when it's exclusive, then it should be addressed. Now, okay, and we can do it. There is nothing preventing us.
Thank you, Astrid. Maybe Minister Harrison, I will just finish the tour de table with the panelists and then give you the floor for some closing remarks, if it is fine with you. So I will now turn to Radek about your main takeaway from the session. Oops.
First of all, thank you very much for being able to contribute to participate in this event and share my thoughts. Well, I would rather than the trying to summarize, I would add another point to the list of policy priorities because I tend to be practical, and coming from the development world supporting organization, I would love to have this message across. Obviously, vehicle safety parameters and standards, and in principle, vehicle standards are of paramount importance. And while indeed we are discussing specific important problem of female specific crash testing and using proper dummies, there is oftentimes in low and particularly in low-income countries, a problem with introducing regulatory framework for motorization management to be understood as a set of standards. And there is United Nations harmonized vehicle regulations, set of regulations, so-called WP29, which is pretty detailed about standards related to vehicles. Actually, I would advocate add to the list of policy priorities, dear decision makers, policy decision makers, please put together good motorization policies for your countries, which means put the standards for vehicles that are entering your country as imports as high as it is needed to protect and limit emissions of vehicles in your country, and assure that all of the vehicles that are being used already in your country are regularly inspected for safety, technical parameters, key technical performance parameters, but also emissions, because these are crucial elements of motorization management. And thank you. It was true privilege and pleasure to participate in this conversation.
Thank you, Radek. Caroline, a latest word from you?
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight basically the need for us to make sure we're including a diversity of occupants or a diversity of people, whether male or female. We need to examine something that's not just the average male, basically in the way we design and we think about things. And I think that can benefit absolutely everybody, particularly women in this case. And thank you all.
Thank you so much. So I would like to thank the State Secretary Trudy Harrison for her participation at the session, to thank all the panelists. There would be a summary prepared from the discussion we had today, and I think you really brought very interesting perspective. And we will prepare a briefing for the ministers' roundtable that will be held in Leipzig in May. And hopefully we will be able also to inject some of the ideas that were mentioned today to the high-level meeting that will be held at the end of June. I think it is indeed a chance that we have to be able to talk about women and road safety, and it's an honor to work for the ITF, which is recognizing gender issue as a key priority for the next years. So thank you again for participating in this session, and I wish you a very nice day. Bye.